It's the halo effect. Sentenced to 26 years in prison, orchestrated the murder of her father and mother to life imprisonment. Was stabbed multiple times, to 26 years in prison, throat slashed, 14-year-olds Barbie and Ken of crime, like intelligence, charm, and kindness. Hey everyone, my name is Alex Beckman, and today we're going to look at the cases of 9 beautiful but criminal women. Or women who may not have even committed a crime, but whose trials have captured national attention because people thought, how could such a beautiful woman do something like this? This happens for a reason. It's the halo effect. The halo effect makes you assume that a person with one positive characteristic, such as beauty, also possesses various other positive attributes like intelligence, charm, and kindness. So without further ado, let's get to the video. If you think a chemical compounds expert involved in drugs and murders is just a storyline from Breaking Bad, you're very much mistaken.
Say my name.
This is Kristin Rossum, an American toxicologist who worked in the field of forensic medicine. Rossum had a drug addiction which severely affected her marriage. In the year 2000, her husband, Greg DeVillers, was found dead in their apartment, with rose petals scattered around the room and a photograph of the couple that had "Sorry, Kristin, goodbye" written on the back. Rossum was having an affair with her boss, and Greg seemed to be aware of it. Fearing that she would be exposed by her husband, Rossum allegedly killed him in a manner designed to resemble suicide. However, the autopsy revealed that he had ingested lethal dose of an analgesic, fentanyl, which had, surprise surprise, gone missing from the lab where she worked. In 2002, she was sentenced to life imprisonment. A wealthy Brazilian girl born in São Paulo, Suzanne von Richtoffen orchestrated the murder of her father and mother with the help of 2 guys she had manipulated, her boyfriend and his brother. The motives for the crime were Suzanne's anger at her parents, especially concerning her relationship and the prospect of inheriting their fortune. Initially, Suzanne was seen more as a traumatized young woman whose parents had been killed during a home invasion, but subsequent investigations revealed her guilt. Suzanne was arrested in 2002 and was granted her freedom in 2023, after having completed her sentence. Many people say that Italy's politics are a mess. I don't know about politics, but their judicial system really dropped the ball on this story here. This is Amanda Knox, and in 2007, she was 20 years old and studying abroad in Perugia, Italy. Her roommate was Meredith Kirker, a 21-year-old Brit also studying abroad. Kirker was found dead, stabbed and sexually assaulted in the apartment they shared. The main targets of the investigation were Kirker's boyfriend, Rafael Solicito, and Amanda Knox herself, who later said that she had been assaulted by the police and coerced into signing a confession. As the investigation continued, a third person was linked to the murder, Rudy Guid. In 2008, Rudy Guid was sentenced to 16 years in prison. His DNA was found at the crime scene, but not that of the other 2. The primary version of events suggests that there was a sexual encounter that went horribly wrong. Then in 2009, Amanda Knox was sentenced to 26 years in prison, and Solicito to 25 years. In 2011, 2 years later, they were acquitted on appeal. Finally free, Knox returned to the United States. However, in 2013, the Supreme Court of Italy annulled the acquittal, and a new trial was conducted in 2014, at which point they were found guilty again. Understandably, Amanda said she wouldn't return to Italy. She may have been right, as a year later the Supreme Court of Italy acquitted them again for the crime. After this, Amanda Knox wrote an autobiography about her experiences and now works as a journalist and is an activist for the wrongfully accused. Guilty or not, the fact is that the Italian justice system dragged out a process in a messy way, and in the end, not very fairly. This woman is Kay Letourneau, an American teacher from a politically important family. And this is Steve Letourneau, her husband, with whom she had 4 children. In 1997, she was pregnant due to an extramarital affair and was also being arrested for that relationship. Why? Well, because the relationship was with him. This is Vili Folau, a 6th grade student of Mary Kay, who was only 12 years old. From the beginning, both said they were deeply in love. Letourneau admitted what she had done and was in prison for rape. She was sentenced to 7 years, but she struck a deal where she would only spend 6 months in prison, with 3 of those 6 months being suspended. But in return, she should complete a treatment program for sex offenders and never see her former student again. After serving her 3 months in prison, she was caught doing the one thing she absolutely could not do. She was seen meeting with Willie in a car, leading to her arrest again, now to serve the full 7-year sentence she originally dodged. At this point, she was already pregnant with her second child with him. In 2004, she was finally released from prison. And then Willie, who was now 21 years old, went to court to request that they be allowed to see each other again. The court agreed, and they married in 2005. They remained married for 14 years, until 2019 when they separated. And in 2020, Letourneau died of cancer at 58. This is an unusual case of rape and which has sparked a lot of discussion to this day, especially due to the fact that it involved an attractive woman with a young man, with both saying from the start that they were in love. What do you think of this couple? Would you be afraid to be alone with them? These are Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, an apparently normal couple who were even praised for their good looks, even becoming known as the Barbie and Ken of crime. So far, we've seen cases of murder and rape, but these two did that and much more. Their first victim was Karla Homolka's sister, Tammy, who was only 15 at the time. She died of asphyxiation by her own vomit, and we won't go into details here. They made it look like an accident and were not even initially suspected. In 1991, 2 teenagers were kidnapped, tortured, raped, and killed by the couple. But if your husband is terribly violent with other women, what guarantees that he won't be with you as well? In 1992, Karla Homolka was brutally beaten with a flashlight by Paul Bernardo, leading to their separation. Investigations began pointing more and more toward the two of them, especially him. Karla then struck a deal with prosecutors and testified against her ex-husband, in exchange for a reduced sentence. She portrayed herself as an innocent and defenseless girl, who was abused and dominated by her husband, thus being forced to obey Paul. She closed this deal with the prosecutors because it seemed that the real monster in the story was only him. Later, it was discovered that Karla had been far more actively involved in the crimes than she had stated. She deceived the prosecutors by having them sign an agreement when they didn't have as much evidence against her yet. Paul Bernardo was sentenced to life in prison, but Karla Homolka received a 12-year sentence, much less than a lifetime. In 2005, Karla Homolka was released after serving her time in prison and still lives among us free. Megan was a 17-year-old babysitter when, in 2009, the 17-month-old child she was looking after was taken to the hospital for supposedly falling off the bed and getting injured. The child was severely injured, and doctors discovered lesions in the head and inside the abdomen. The child died 2 days later in the hospital. Her case became well known across the country, and in 2012, Megan was acquitted for all murder charges due to lack of evidence. Despite this, Martzen's reputation was destroyed both professionally and socially. A case similar to Letourneau's was that of Debra Lafave. She was also an elementary school teacher in the United States and was arrested in 2004 for engaging sexually with one of her 14-year-old students when she was 24. Her relationship with the student was discovered by his mother through text messages they exchanged. And perhaps if the mother had not seen these messages, things might have gone without many consequences. Lafave later stated that her crime was a result of bipolar disorder and hypersexuality. She began receiving treatment for bipolar disorder and attributed the cause to having been raped by a schoolmate when she was just 13, as she claimed. There was a lot of discussion about how her crime was perceived and the sentence that was applied. Many people still see that 14-year-old boy as actually lucky, and they view the issue as much less severe than it would be if the genders were reversed. This led to much criticism of the sentencing as well. Lafave was sentenced to 3 years of house arrest and 7 years of probation. But many argue that the sentence would have been much harsher if the perpetrator had been a man, who most believe would likely have been incarcerated. Lorena Bobbitt is an Ecuadorian woman who lived in the United States with her husband, John. She claimed to suffer from physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her husband. On June 23, 1993, she took a kitchen knife, approached her sleeping husband, and cut off his thing. After doing so, she got into a car, drove to an open field, and threw his genital organ there. Ultimately, she appeared to experience remorse and called emergency services. Once a search team was dispatched to look for the, discarded body part, they managed to find it and perform a 9-hour-long surgery to reattach it. In the end, she was acquitted by a jury in 1994, who found that the incident had been brought on by a state of temporary insanity. Her husband became a subject of nationwide ridicule for what had happened to him. Specifically in this case, he was victimized twice. Jodi Arias was seen as very beautiful and had a turbulent relationship with her boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Travis Alexander was a motivational speaker and salesman, and he was found dead in his home in Mesa, Arizona in June 2008. He was stabbed multiple times, shot in the head, and had his throat slashed. It was a shocking and gruesome crime scene. And Jodi Arias quickly became one of the main suspects because they had recently ended their relationship, and her versions of what had happened kept changing. The case received nationwide attention, and many people didn't believe that she could have done something so violent. Her first version of the story was that she wasn't at the scene during the murder. Police discovered photographs on a digital camera at the crime scene linking her to the murder. The photos had been deleted, but data recovery revealed images of Alexander in the shower shortly before his murder. Her second version was that two men had broken into the house and killed Alexander, but that she had managed to escape. This version wasn't taken seriously, and she was arrested and charged with homicide. Her trial began in 2013 and was followed nationwide. Then she changed her version for the third time. She claimed that she indeed had killed Travis Alexander, but it was in self-defense due to physical and sexual abuse. Various pieces of evidence suggested that the murder was premeditated, and that Arias was a jealous and manipulative individual, and that she had staged the crime scene to make it appear as though an intruder had committed the crime. She could have been sentenced to death or life imprisonment, and ended up sentenced to life imprisonment by the jury. Rumors even circulated that one of the jurors had fallen in love with her. These cases illustrate how appearances can sometimes be deceiving, and how it's always important to remember that you can't judge a book by its cover. The halo effect tends to be much stronger than people usually perceive, but at least perhaps by being aware that it can affect you, you can somewhat reduce the likelihood for falling for it.